My name is John Aguilar. I am the president and founder of the independent television production company Street Park Productions, and I'm also the creator and host of the business reality TV show The Final Pitch on CNN Philippines. My adventure with innovation started back in 2007 as a new independent business owner, TV producer. I was trying to look for an industry that I could penetrate that was being underserved in the television landscape. So right around that time, it was just before the real estate boom happened here in the country. And I remember doing a lot of research at that time and found that there were so many developers who were advertising their projects. And when we first started producing the show, we found a lot of advertisers in the construction industry that wanted to advertise with us. The problem was that they wanted to pay not in cash, but in items. So they wanted to pay with bathroom fixtures, with tiles, and instead of saying no, I thought, why not accept these items and actually build houses in the program? So instead of just featuring the projects of the developers, why don't we ourselves become a developer? So I actually built my first house in our show, Philippine Realty TV, and partnered with different suppliers to make it happen. So we've been doing this for a number of years already. We've done a lot of projects, from my first home to a green home with Aguilar to a flood adaptive home in Marikina that will allow your car to float in the event of a flood. And recently, we just finished building this fully automated smart home in Quezon City that has the latest smart features in the market. So as a TV producer, I found that this was really a great way to do business. It's not the usual advertising that's done by advertisers and the TV network. It's really totally different. So with our learnings from Philippine Realty TV, we decided to get into another industry or another space. So back in 2017, some startups here in the Philippines were just starting to create a little bit of noise. The word startup was just new, and more so venture capital. There was not a lot that was being done in the startup ecosystem here in the country. And this was around the time when Go Negosyo also had a lot of these events that we would get invited to. And this one particular event we went to, I was telling my wife, there are so many people here, tycoons, captains of industry. We could just go up to anyone and pitch anything, pitch a business, pitch an idea. And back in 2017, my wife and I were watching a lot of Shark Tank. And I told my wife, I think this is the perfect time to come up with our own version of Shark Tank. So that night was really the birth of the concept for the final pitch. But instead of it being just sort of like a copycat of Shark Tank, we wanted to create something that would address the local context of the Philippines. We knew that the startup ecosystem was very nascent. There were not a lot of resources out there for people who were just starting out and beginning to put up their own startups. We knew that we had to play a hand in informing or educating the market and the public of how to think of building, pitching, and eventually possibly taking your startup to the next level. So the final pitch essentially was born at the very beginning of the startup boom here in the country. The startup ecosystem was really new, and we wanted to find out as much as possible about it. So I went to all of the events. I went to all of the mixers, the conferences, the talks, just to try to sink my teeth into what this whole startup thing was all about. We just really wanted to find out as much as we could about the ecosystem and to find out how to be able to create a product or a show that would be able to serve the specific needs of startups and investors in the Philippines. So in 2017, we came up with a pilot, our first season, for the final pitch. If you take a look at the format, the final pitch is a combination of Shark Tank, The Voice, and The Apprentice combined in one program. So you have the entrepreneurs pitching to the investors, and once the investors take an interest in them, they then invite them, like The Voice, to join them in their team. So they're recruited and they become official contestants on the show. Once they're on board, we introduce mentors to them who help them in the different aspects of their businesses, whether it's in marketing, in sales, in their core business model. The role of the mentors really is to be able to help these entrepreneurs transform their pitch from what it was in the beginning all the way up until the final pitch. And the finale is the final pitch, where that is the Shark Tank moment. They give a pitch and hopefully they get an investment at the end of the day. So the show is an amalgamation of these three concepts, and it uniquely serves what the investors here in the Philippines need and also what the startup community is looking for. The show is also used by our investor judges as a great way, not just to find these entrepreneurs who pitch to them on the show, and these are really some of the best in the country, but they also use it as a way to be able to showcase their respective companies, advocacies, even personal brands. So one thing that's unique about our show is our business model. So in the case of Shark Tank, the production pays the sharks a talent fee. So this talent fee allows them to onboard the sharks, and the sharks then become their cast and they invest their own money into those investments. In the case of the final pitch, it's actually the other way around. So the investors pay us so that they can be judges on the show. If you take a look at Shark Tank and how the sharks have transformed their personal brands, their companies, pre-Shark Tank to what they are today, the difference was really attributed in large part to being global icons because of Shark Tank. I mean, they were successful before, but Shark Tank took their businesses to a totally different level. So with that way of thinking, becoming an investor judge on the final pitch allows you to also be able to get yourself out there. People know instantly what you're looking for in terms of investments or investing in companies. And you are also able to showcase your company, your advocacies, your personal brand. So with that in mind, it makes sense. Even if we will charge a fee to our investors, they get so much out of it in terms of their participation on the show. So what happens is they get to fund the show and we get to mount it, and everyone gets the benefit of the exposure and the kind of platform that is created via the final pitch. So when people find out about our business model, they always say, "John, your business model is brilliant." And I always say, when you don't have a lot of resources, you have to be creative. And this is the most creative way that we could possibly mount the final pitch. And the past 7 seasons have been a testament to the kind of collaboration that we're able to build because of the show. It's allowed our investors to find some of the best startups that they have backed through the years. And these startups have grown, some of them even expanding across Southeast Asia. And a lot of them really credit their growth, the kind of even marketing push and awareness because of the final pitch. And with some startups on the show who have gotten investments, we are actually now partners. We have an equity stake and actively help them, not just to raise funds, but also in the other aspects of their businesses. So before each season starts, it actually begins with me pitching to the investor judges to get them on board the show. So everything starts from there. So a new season of the show means I would have done the pitches and have convinced these judges to be part of the final pitch. And the rest, as they say, is history. So what were the challenges that we encountered along the way? With the production of the first season, we were able to onboard traditional investors. So these are successful entrepreneurs who have built traditional businesses here in the Philippines. And a lot of them have preconceived notions of partnering. So with some deals, they were trying to see if they could take majority. And with the startups, since a lot of them were really new, they didn't know how to value their companies as well. So they were asking for multi-million peso deals that, quite frankly, did not justify the kind of traction that they had at that time, because a lot of them were really just ideas. So it was also a matter of, through the next seasons, trying to educate both sides, both the investors and the startups, and trying to have them meet or have a middle ground. And I think you'll be able to get this through the years of people watching the show, maybe learning from the mistakes of previous investors and startups, and trying to come up with a more sophisticated way of looking at both investing in startups and also for the startups asking for an investment from the judges. So it's not overnight that this happened, but we found that through the years, because of the show, we were able to help with the thinking of both sides. And sometimes outside of the show, there would be investors who would come to us saying, we also want to invest in startups. And so I asked them, what's your goal? Well, and some of them outright say that we're willing to invest, but we want majority, right? And I always bring them to what I learned in Singularity University in Silicon Valley. And I quote its executive founder, Dr. Peter Diamandis, when he said that Big businesses should partner with entrepreneurs and startups. Give them access to your data and resources. Invest in them, but do not take majority. Otherwise, you will kill their spirit. So it's always what I try to impart to the investors. The startups need you, and it actually makes sense for big businesses to partner with startups because they have the ideas, they have the passion, but do it in such a way that you complement them instead of killing their business. Because by getting majority, you actually will not allow them to seek funding later on in the future. And what that does is that you will be a major owner of a startup that will not grow to its full capacity and potential. So those are some of the things that we hope changes. I think through the years, this mindset has changed, and we hope that as we enter the golden era of startups here in our country, that a lot more deals get done, because quite frankly, there's so much money coming in right now, but not enough ideas and really good founders to be able to implement them. So the next couple of years are going to be very exciting for the startup ecosystem here in the Philippines. So it's been 7 seasons so far, and the business model has evolved as well. Through the years, we've also evolved on the show. On our 5th season, we specifically focused on real estate and livable city solutions. When COVID hit in 2020, we came up with a Heroes Edition that had us finding the heroes who are coming up with new solutions for the new normal. And when we were heavily hit by the Delta variant in 2021, we came up with a virtual edition that had the entrepreneurs pitching virtually to our judges on the show. So I think it's important for us to evolve as a program, as a platform, and also to think bigger. Because right now we're also setting our sights on expanding outside of the Philippines with the Final Pitch ASEAN. So this is going to be our expansion to the rest of Southeast Asia. We're involving, apart from the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So this will be a regional business reality show that will have investor judges from each of those countries hearing pitches from startups and scale-ups from across the region and from around the world. Essentially, if you want to be able to scale to these different territories, the Final Pitch ASEAN is going to be the gateway for you to be able to do that. We're filming this series in Singapore and also eventually to these other Southeast Asian countries. So as we expand across Southeast Asia, I know that it's going to be a difficult proposition. Culturally, there's so much differences, but also we're bound by this common thread. And a lot of investors are really looking at this part of the world, Southeast Asia. I think this is going to be an explosive region to be part of in terms of the ecosystem of startups in the next couple of years. And this really is where the action is at. So doing the Final Pitch ASEAN is going to be a game changer. With this, I feel that we're going to be able to introduce a lot of the exciting scale-ups that are now being born. These are the future unicorns that we hope to be able to discover through the Final Pitch. So what are some tips or key lessons that I can share about my process of innovation? Well, the first I would think is something that is derived from Zen Buddhism, the concept of Shoshin, or the beginner's mind. So Shoshin refers to having an attitude of openness, eagerness, and a lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. So I always approach each new industry, each new show, as something that is new, something that is fresh, which allows me to be able to look at it from the perspective of someone not knowing anything about it, but also being open to the possibilities. If someone had told me with my real estate show that as a TV producer, I could not even begin to build houses on the show with zero background in architecture and engineering, then I would have told you, yes, maybe I would not. But I saw that opportunity as a way to learn, and a lot of things we learned along the way. It's the same with the startup ecosystem. We had to do a lot of research, we had to talk to so many people, go to so many events, but in the end, all of that information informs you and allows you to be able to expand your way of thinking. In the words of Zen teacher Shun Ryu Suzuki, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. And I also think that a certain degree of naivete is important, because if you don't set a limit for what you can do and what you can achieve, then there really is nothing you can't do. So it's the same thinking that we're bringing to our future innovations, wherein we will be building our own startups from the ground up. So we will be partnering with major corporations and governments to be able to build startups that will address very specific challenges and problems that we now face today. And we're going to document every step of the way, as this will be a TV series on how to build a startup from scratch. So if you take a look at our TV production business, it actually allowed us to be able to get into all of these industries and actually participate and take an active part or role in that ecosystem, as opposed to maybe a journalist who should remain neutral and should be behind the scenes just documenting, covering, and reporting on what is happening to a particular industry. We actually take the opposite stance. We get neck deep into that industry, participate in it, and hopefully affect a positive change in that ecosystem. I call it method producing, akin to a method actor who really gets into a role deeply, so much so that it affects or takes over their lives. That is essentially what we've done and what I've done with the shows that we've done through the years. It takes a lot of commitment, but method producing, in my case, has been a life-changing experience, literally, because I obsess about everything in an industry, and it allows me to be able to open my mind to the possibilities because I live it. I just don't observe what is happening. I actually am an active participant and change maker, hopefully, in that industry. So that is what is unique about what we do, and something that I hope you're also to see in your respective businesses, careers. What is it that you have that is of value to the world that you can put out there and maybe tweak it in such a way that you're able to create something new and something that will change that particular industry that you're in. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of commitment, but it's the path that we've chosen, and a path that's been profitable for us and also beneficial to a lot of people that we've touched through the years, through our shows and the businesses that we put up. So I hope you learned something today, and my final message would be that innovation is really one great big adventure, but you have to be prepared to look at things with a beginner's mind, to be a little bit naive, but to also be open to changing that industry, that world. Because until you fully commit to something with everything that you have, that's when innovation can happen. It's grasping something with your entire being, but also holding concepts, ideas lightly in your hand. And hopefully some of those things will birth into the next innovation that could change their world and your world. So good luck as you find your own great big innovation adventure.